Oh, thank you very much, Colleen. It is a pleasure to be here. As you know, I'm in Santa Fe doing the Lord's work with the legislature to get, protect, and fend off all people who are trying to take our money and then work with those who want to give us money. So, and I'm hopeful. I don't actually say anything till the end of the session. Then I'm say, well, we did it or we didn't. So, but it looks good this year, I have to say that. So, you know, for me, this is a great honor to welcome all of you as we celebrate the International Women's Day on Wednesday and Women's History Month. Both of those have great meaning. And I want to tell you that we take our business very seriously when it comes to helping women, whether they're students, faculty, staff, alums, be successful. And this group today is showing that. And for me, it is a great honor because I know the strength of women. When my mother and father divorced, my mother was the one who took care of me and got me to college. And here I am. I was the first in our family to go to college. So I know the strength of women. I also am proud to say that I was the president who nominated the first state geologist who's sitting in this room as a female, and that's Dr. Nelia Dunbar, our first female state geologist. So, yeah. So it's been a great ride for me to recognize the role of women at this campus. So for the next 3 days, you know, you have activities that's been planned by the students, faculty, staff, and alum. The Office of Student Life. The vice president is here. Dr. Green, you're just eating as well. I saw you get the bite in your mouth, so you want to wave to everybody. And the advancement office. And so we will explore the concept, as you just heard from Colleen, of a women's resource center here at Tech. And the goal, as she said, of this resource center is to promote women's achievement at Tech through access to knowledge, support systems, and key tools. And we believe that such a center would help women stay connected, and therefore they will be successful not only here at Tech, but beyond. Other events over the next few days include speed mentoring. I need that, which will bring students and successful women in STEM and academia face-to-face in order to share challenges and advice on how to be effective in their careers. So that brings us to, I think, a very, very special moment. And I'm going to say, it will appear to be rude for me because as soon as I'm done introducing our keynote speaker, I'm going to leave to go back to Santa Fe, but I have to do that. So please excuse me when I do that. But it's my pleasure to introduce an inspirational keynote speaker for today's Tech Talk. Dr. Jennifer Dawson is the Senior Director of Space Business Transformation at Maxar, am I saying that correct? Maxar Technologies, a Westminster, Colorado-based leading spacecraft manufacturer. Dr. Dawson leads an organization of more than 100 engineers who are responsible for defining the requirements, verification, and validation steps to ensure successful space missions. When I go to space, I want her in charge. That's what I want. Dr. Dawson has spent over 15 years of experience in mechanical engineering and robotics, so hopefully you'll get a chance to visit our robotics lab here. She holds a master's and doctorate in mechanical engineering from Stanford University and spent 2 years as a tenure track professor at York College in Pennsylvania. In 2016, she was awarded the Society of Satellite Professionals International Promise Award, which recognizes outstanding achievement and leadership potential in space and satellite industries. So congratulations. She was also awarded the Stevie Award for Women in Business for Best New Consumer Service and the Otto Hamburg Award for her research on pyro shock failures of space hardware. She's made it a priority to coach women on how to embrace leadership and to become mentors themselves. So I can't think of anyone better to kick this off today than Dr. Dawson. So it's my pleasure, Dr. Dawson, for you to join me up here and give your presentation. I'm going to watch it on video. I will do it because we're recording it back here for those who are missing it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being here, and please take care. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. So everything is not okay in STEM fields. In my career, I have experienced very real harassment. As a student, I dealt with undermining from senior design group members. Later in grad school, a lab group member suddenly got obsessive and left me a bunch of creepy voicemails. As a professor, I had a student back me into a corner and physically threaten me. And in industry, I had a boss who violated me physically outside an executive conference room in the middle of a workday. But these egregious examples in some ways have been easier to deal with than the subtle day-to-day forms of microaggressions, because every reasonable person would agree that these are obviously wrong and unacceptable. In the book, Good Guys, How Men Can Be Better Allies in the Workplace, the authors provide a glossary of ally slang. Bropreation and heap-heating. When you offer up a brilliant idea and it gets ignored, but when a dude says the same thing 5 minutes later, it gets applauded as genius. Gaslighting. When your lived experience gets questioned, downplayed, or minimized. Manel. A bunch of dudes on a panel with no diverse representation. And my favorite, the mansplaining. Trying to impress you or diminish you with their knowledge of the domain where you are clearly the more seasoned expert. Yes, 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 and yes, daily lived experience. Commonplace microaggressions have had a more corrosive effect on my self-efficacy and self-esteem than the obvious forms of harassment that I've experienced during my career. The near constant barrage of subtle undermining and condescension often gets a pass, with people messaging, "Don't be so sensitive," instead of holding themselves and others accountable for better behavior. Good Guys is a good read, by the way. I have leveraged the skills to be a more effective ally for racial minorities, my LGBTQI plus colleagues, and people with neurodiversity and disabilities. I think it should be required reading for every college student. So why on earth have I stuck with engineering for 24 years? I have a job where I learn something new every day. I am intellectually engaged in solving fascinating problems. I have been responsible for building successful spacecraft that are providing economic opportunity, bringing to light atrocities in Ukraine, and helping to save lives during natural disasters. I ensured the public was safe as cutting-edge self-driving technology was tested on roads. And I am blessed to have a high degree of job security. I know I could get another job within a few days if I needed to. And I'm at a level of compensation that means we have a comfortable home in a wonderful neighborhood. I also have the financial resources to provide specialized treatment for my special needs kids that is not covered by insurance. Both of my kids have ADHD. Prior to their diagnosis, I sort of assumed ADHD was kids that are kind of hyperactive and have a hard time sitting still. But I have since become much more educated. There are a number of different symptoms and behaviors that are associated with ADHD. Executive functioning can be a challenge. Impulse control can be a challenge. And so it has been absolutely critical for us to be able to provide specialized care for our kids. My career within engineering is enabling us to do that. Now, this photo on the left shows two happy, smiling kids. What's really going on behind the scenes, though, is my son in particular is highly, highly sensitive to touches and smells. And he was having a meltdown about having his feet in the sand. And so I actually put him on my back and carried him across the sand in order to get a few pictures where he could be happy and smiling. Parenting ADHD kids is a heavy lift, mostly emotionally, but sometimes physically. And my well-paying job helps to ensure that we can provide the care for them to be at their best. It is a major reason why I continue in my engineering career. Another benefit of the compensation from my engineering career is my husband and I get to explore the world together, enabling us to reconnect as a couple and make joyful memories that bond us. It's a good life, and I truly am grateful. But I am also grateful because of the incredible colleagues, mentors, and advocates who have fundamentally made me a better person. As a result of their influence, I have grown as an individual, increased my capacity to do good in the world, and deepened my confidence, humility, and empathy. And I daily experience the satisfaction of contributing to the growth and development of my team members, helping them to manage their own work struggles more effectively so that they can go home with less stress and more well-being. Would I trade my career? Not in a second. And yet, while my career has been fulfilling, as I said in the beginning, everything is not okay in STEM, and we can and should do better. It doesn't do you any good for me to gaslight you into thinking engineering companies are typically nurturing and supportive places for women. We need to be clear about the problem so we can find solutions. I want to equip you with some strategies that you can utilize during your education and beyond to make sure you can enjoy the benefits of a STEM career while also helping to solve the underlying issues that will make STEM a better experience for you and the women who come after you. As an engineer, I know that we always need a good, clear problem statement to get to the right solution. One of the techniques we use in systems engineering is a technique called the 5 whys, drilling down 5 levels of why to get to the heart of an issue. So let's try it. Why is the current environment for women in STEM unacceptable? There's just not enough of us. We have made minimal progress over the last 20 years to reach gender parity, while other professions such as doctors and lawyers have made far greater strides. So why aren't there more women? The systems and power structures that existed before women were in the workplace work well for the majority, even in subtle, unconscious ways. So there's not an obvious incentive to change. Women experience subtle messages on a daily basis that we don't really belong here. Desk and chair heights are set for average males. The result, if I want to have my head at an equal height with the men in a conference room, I have to raise the chair so my feet don't hit the ground. I have also struggled with ergonomic issues and had to fight for a sit-stand desk to make work physically bearable. Thermostats are often set at colder temperatures than most women prefer. I'm frequently cold at work and occasionally get teased for dressing warmly, particularly when I'm overdressed for the outside temperature. And perhaps the most common, the shock and awe reaction when people find out that I have a doctorate in engineering. People are often poor at hiding the fact that a woman engineer runs counter to their expectations. But every time it happens, it reinforces the message to me that I don't really belong. So why can't women force change to achieve a higher degree of belonging? For too long, we have treated the lack of women as a women's problem, when in reality, men hold the cards. They are the ones who can change the policies and culture to enable a higher degree of belonging for women. Research shows that if a woman calls out sexist behavior, she is evaluated less positively and seen as a less competent leader than a man who calls out the same behavior. For the woman, it is seen as being self-serving. But for the man, the observers are more likely to be positively influenced to change. The data on the business case for gender equity is incontrovertible. Study after study has found that gender diversity results in better financial performance and more well-being for both men and women. McKinsey's study found that diverse and inclusive companies achieve more radical innovation, bolder decisions, are more likely to anticipate shifts in consumer needs, and achieve more profitability. But despite these obvious benefits, change has been incredibly slow coming. So why don't men make better strategic decisions for their companies by promoting diversity, inclusion, and belonging when there's data to show that it will make their companies better? In some cases, it's inattentiveness. It takes effort to pay attention and monitor for problematic behavior that doesn't affect you personally. For others, it's a protectionist scarcity mindset. If something is good for you, it's fundamentally taking something away from me. For others, it's fear of being stigmatized by their peers, the WIMP penalty. If there's good news, it's that the unchangeable, obvious misogynists and bigots are quite rare. I am a big believer that culture gets set to the worst behaving team member, so these folks needed to be rooted out quickly. The vast majority of guys you are likely to encounter in STEM are in the hesitant, fearful, inconsistent, unreliable, or maybe just clueless category. They often say the wrong thing and will rarely step up and correct problematic behavior from their peers. The strong allies are also rare. These men are skillful, active, consistent, informed, and brave, and they actually work to disrupt the toxicity that does exist. These incredible men are a safe harbor. Appreciate and support them because they are fighting a hard fight. So why do men get stuck in fear and inattentiveness? Men in our society are not raised to embrace vulnerability. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. They are strongly socialized to prioritize what keeps them safe emotionally and financially. Anything that can be perceived as a threat to their future success or their position as alpha dog is met with a strong, visceral protectionist behavior. As stated in Good Guys, diversity is a tough sell in an organization where many people see diversity as a threat to their identity, job, or advancement opportunities. As the mother of an 11-year-old son, my husband and I have worked to ensure he's not excessively bound by gender norms. We teach him to respect the physical boundaries of the girls and women in his life, to understand and express his own emotions, and to see a feelings doctor or a therapist as a normal part of staying healthy. Despite these conscientious parenting efforts, cultural programming runs deep, and we have more work to do to help him to grow and to be an empathetic and empowered ally. Imagine what it is like for men who do not grow up in family systems where there's a strong priority placed on developing skills in emotional regulation and promoting fairness and kindness. When problematic behaviors do pop up at work, my immediate reaction often is anger and disgust. But staying stuck in those feelings doesn't help me to respond in ways that are aligned to my values. Seeing the behavior as a symptom of brokenness in families, society, education systems, and work cultures helps me to strike the right balance in fighting to make it better while not shaming and blaming individuals, which only triggers more defensiveness. It's not easy, but empathy is the most effective approach to getting men to move out of being stuck in fear and cluelessness. So now that we understand a little better what is causing the suboptimal work environment for women in STEM, let's talk about how to equip you with some skills that are going to help you be successful, help our companies and communities to harness the full capacity of the talent in our midst, and ultimately help you to have a healthy, productive balance between work and personal life. So step one is building resiliency skills. How many of you are familiar with the concept of imposter syndrome? Lots of hands. That is awesome. It's a strong desire to achieve, but an inability to internalize your own accomplishments. Instead, success is attributed to luck or hard work that can be done by anyone. Imposters feel like they are fooling people into believing they are smarter than they are, and fear being discovered. Here's a more vulnerable and personal question. How many of you identify with feeling imposter feelings? A lot of hands still going up. I am a recovering imposter, and I want to share with you what has helped me. Resiliency, or an ability to bounce back from setbacks, is absolutely critical for long-term career success. It makes us willing to take reasonable risks in our careers, to make mistakes, and to be open to critical feedback that helps us achieve mastery. A lack of resiliency will stifle learning and cause our careers to plateau too soon. The good news is we can practice and learn skills to become more resilient and to talk back to that imposter voice. The foundation of resiliency is Carol Dweck's pioneering research on growth mindset. She noticed that some kids, when presented with a too difficult problem, would stop trying, devastated that their abilities had been shown to be lacking. Other kids viewed the challenge and struggle as an opportunity to try, to experiment, and ultimately to learn new skills. Growth mindset is the power of not yet, whereas fixed mindset lives in the tyranny of now. Fixed mindset says, if I can't do it now, I won't be able to ever. Growth mindset says, I may not be able to yet, but if I keep trying, I may be able to soon. By embracing a growth mindset, we give ourselves permission to fall short while maintaining the motivation to keep working towards our goal. It is vital to resiliency. Perfectionism is another resiliency killer. Perfectionist tendencies get in the way of learning and growth. When we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection, we limit our risk-taking and miss out on opportunities to strive, explore, and experiment. Perfectionism causes us to be unproductively self-critical of ourselves and unfairly critical of others. In the early part of my career, I was terrified of critique. And as a result, any message of not good enough hit me deep and tore apart my self-esteem. Even more telling, praise would almost always cause me to tear up because I was so anxiously anticipating negativity instead of the unexpected affirmation. The antidote to perfectionism is self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff's research teaches us to treat ourselves as we would treat a good friend. I am far harsher and crueler to myself than I would be to anyone else in my life. But I have learned that self-compassion has transformed my ability to be realistic about my limitations and accept critical feedback. There are three components to self-compassion. Self-kindness, quieting the harsh inner critic by approaching ourselves with kindness. Common humanity. How am I the same as others? Embracing that we all make mistakes. We are all imperfect. It is the very nature of the human condition. So why expect otherwise of ourselves? And mindfulness, being with what is in the present moment. We need to be able to see, recognize, and respect that suffering in the moment will help us to move through it more quickly. When my shame gremlins, as Brene Brown calls them, rear their ugly head and I start to beat myself up, I stop and say to myself instead, It's understandable that I feel embarrassed right now for making that mistake at work, mindfully acknowledging the feeling. But we all make mistakes, acknowledging common humanity, and I can learn from this to do better moving forward. Self-kindness, growth mindset. Not allowing myself to belittle myself has completely transformed my stress level and enabled me to show up as a more grounded, patient, and insightful leader to my team. Step 2, build a support system. Even with resiliency skills, there will likely be places during your career where the intensity of the challenge will be overwhelming. Perhaps you will encounter a company or a team with a toxic culture. Or maybe you will have a boss who exhibits what Brené Brown calls armored leadership qualities, such as using criticism for self-protection, leading for compliance and control, or weaponizing fear and uncertainty. Or maybe you will step into a role that stretches you far beyond your comfort zone, triggering fear and insecurity. In these moments, I have relied on a strong and deep bench of mentors that have sustained me through the most difficult moments of my career. Some of my mentors have invested hundreds of hours in our relationship, walking me through the highs and lows of my career over the course of decades. Those mentors are beloved, the people who have given my professional life meaning, and I could never adequately convey the gratitude I feel for their role in my professional and personal growth. Some mentors I see only sporadically, but they have stepped in at times of acute need with words of wisdom and encouragement that changed my career trajectory. Some mentors I've met only once, but they shared such sage advice that I still quote them frequently, even many years later. Others may be more likely to characterize a relationship as friends or colleagues, but whether they realize it or not, they shared wisdom and showed up with empathy and support in times of turmoil in a way that gave me strength to keep going. Some advice for finding and cultivating mentor relationships. Invest the time. You need to be reasonably selfish throughout every stage of your career to invest the time in building relationships that matter. It's easy to think I'm too busy now, but building a support system is oxygen mask stuff. Nothing else you do will matter professionally if you don't have your support system in a time of acute need. Take advantage of formal mentorship programs, such as those through your school or professional societies like SWE, but also pay attention when people show they care about you and your success, and invest the time to deepen those relationships. I have several close mentors that I make sure to connect with at least a couple of times a year. One in particular is Keith Buffington, my undergraduate professor and thesis advisor. I fly back to Pennsylvania a couple of times a year to reconnect with Keith, and it's a relationship that has been vital to me over the past 20 years. Next, be grateful. Many people will give of their time, listen generously, and share their hard-earned lessons learned if you approach them with curiosity and gratitude. Offering to take a mentor to coffee or lunch to help you work through an issue is a small gesture to show the interaction is important to you. Asking good questions to your mentor to show that you value what they are sharing. Writing a quick note afterwards to let your mentor know the outcome of the situation or the impact of the advice they shared. All gives the mentor a feeling that their time investment in you is paying off. A little gratitude goes a long way to ensure that the mentor is willing to meet again in the future. Next, diversify your mentor pool. It can be helpful to have mentors inside your organization as they will have unique insight into the culture, people, and politics of the situation you are working through. But it is also helpful to have mentors outside of your organization to provide a balanced perspective. Outside mentors typically have less skin in the game when it comes to things like deciding whether it's time to leave a company. And so their perspective can be invaluable. You may even try reverse mentoring, meeting with a more senior person to help them understand the generational divide and help them to become more effective in leading the organization. It's never too soon to start mentoring yourself. Mentoring helps hone listening skills, provides the satisfaction of helping others, and leads to new insights and strategies that you can apply to your own work. Finally, find mentors who will call you out. The best mentor relationships are built on trust and genuine care and concern. When you have that kind of relationship, mentors can help you spot where you are falling short or going wrong and help you to course correct. It is less helpful to have mentors who unequivocally support you in everything you do and validate every decision you make. Sometimes you will make mistakes, be off base, or reach hasty conclusions. Great mentors call you on it and help you see the bigger picture. Step 3, embrace authenticity. It can be very tempting to want to blend into the crowd when you are the only woman. Resist the urge. The qualities and characteristics that make you uniquely you are exactly the things that we so desperately need for our diverse teams to thrive. When I first started a formal technical leadership role, I struggled. I felt like a fish out of water. By then I knew how to excel at being an individual contributor, but stepping into leadership shifted how I spent my time on a daily basis, and I felt very uncertain about whether I was doing it right. I turned to the leaders above me in the organization and sought to model my leadership after them. It worked for them. Shouldn't it work for me too? Wrong. The leaders above me were all men and typically at least 20 years older than me. Adopting their leadership style felt unnatural, and as a result, some of the team sensed my fakeness and outright challenged my credibility. It was not a recipe for success. My approach shifted when I met Jennifer Kenny. She shared with me her work on 100% capacity. Her idea is that there's about a third of leadership competencies that are typically male, a third of leadership competencies that typically both men and women do well, and about a third of leadership competencies that are typically female. Because most of our companies have male-dominated leadership teams, the third that are typically female often go unnamed and undervalued. But it is to the detriment of the leadership team and the company. It has been incredibly valuable for me to build the vocabulary for my authentic leadership style. And as Jennifer says, set my own standard of leadership excellence. Some of the things I do far better than many of my male peers include building candid, diverse, high-trust teams, leveraging that diversity through collaboration to reach quality decisions with a high degree of buy-in, managing complexity to bring strategic clarity and purpose, nurturing others' development through encouragement and empathy, and modeling the behaviors of self-awareness, effortful learning, and humility to build a high degree of psychological safety on my teams. It's not a framework for leadership that shows up in many companies' annual performance reviews, but there has been consistent, unequivocal data that shows gender-balanced leadership teams produce better business outcomes, increased revenues, better stock prices, more innovation, and increases in employee engagement. These same principles apply to our community organizations, volunteer organizations, faith communities, and even our families. It's time to rewrite the playbook and play by our own rules. Getting clear about the value we bring to our organizations and consistently messaging that value helps us to stay strong in the midst of corrosive effects of problematic behavior. While I wish I could tell you, you will consistently feel tremendous belonging and support from colleagues in your work life, STEM careers are worth fighting for. The opportunity to give back, to innovate products that improve people's lives, to provide for your family and your community, to develop relationships with incredibly brilliant people, and to experience the personal growth that comes through the journey are all reasons to stick with it. As you continue with your education and pursue your careers, don't change yourself to blend into the male-dominated culture. Embrace your authentic self and get comfortable with being a bit uncomfortable, being different from the majority. It can help to leverage some self-compassion. It feels really uncomfortable to stand out by being me, but I am strong enough to live in my values and lead authentically. Practice your resiliency skills and surround yourself with savvy, invested confidants who will help you achieve mastery. I have every confidence you will help pave the way for STEM companies to leverage their incredible talent to benefit our communities and the world. Thank you.